Hello and welcome to GB Face. My name is Sahar Ghazi. This week we're going to be talking about asylum seekers and the increasing brutal politics they're facing as they are moving through difficult conditions to countries in Europe and also Australia. We are joined by our GB author and German editor, actually, Anne Hameda from Essen, Germany, and Kevin Rainey from Melbourne, Australia. Suzanne Lane from Strasbourg, France, also our French contributor and involved with our Lingua team, and Talia Reim, who joins us from Beirut, Lebanon. She is our Lebanon author, and she writes about different citizen media initiatives around the world, actually. I'd like to move to you, Kevin, first, and talk a bit about the campaign within Australia, specifically targeting asylum seekers trying to enter the country. As you know, this year UNHCR released its numbers for 2013, and it was a record high of number of asylum seekers seeking refuge, close to 600,000, more than 600,000 asylum seekers trying to flee to North America, Europe, and Australia. And we've never seen a more aggressive campaign within some of these countries to not welcome these people. And a lot of these asylum seekers are fleeing conflict. The top 5 countries that these refugees were from were Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and a few other countries that are facing conflict. Could you tell us more about the campaign within Australia and the politics behind it?
Yes, the campaign itself is actually by the Australian government, but it's outside the country because it's aimed at potential refugees who are coming by boat without visas. And so it's not, you don't see the ads in Australia unless they're shown on the news or something like that. That's the first thing. Second thing is it is particularly or especially targeted at people arriving by boat who are often demonised as illegals, which is not a correct term, but it's used by the government. People arriving by boat are treated differently. They are not allowed to, even if they're found to be refugees, to settle in Australia, and are in fact sent to offshore detention at the moment in Nauru and in Papua New Guinea for processing. And the government's stated reasons are to prevent people dying at sea in unseaworthy boats and to deter people smugglers who, of course, were increasing the numbers because they were making a profit out of it. Of course, the background of that is much more complex. It has to do with public opinion, which is not necessarily motivated by the same ideas that people who might support the government policy for good reasons, and it may involve Islamophobia because most of the countries are Muslim countries, or just fear of foreigners anyway, which is a traditional Australian problem. Australia does take about 13,000 refugees per year that come through the UNHCR processes from other countries, although that has been wound back, the number. It was 20,000 the year before the new government came in. Unfortunately, both of the major parties support the current position, except that the Labor Party, who are now the opposition, do not support turning back boats, which is another controversial part of the policy. The Greens don't support any of the current government policy, so that would be the main opposition to what's happening at the moment.
And what about some organizations or initiatives on the ground that are trying to help asylum seekers and refugees in Australia?
There are quite a few. practically all the main non-government organisations try to help them in one way or another, although it can be quite controversial. For example, the Salvation Army, who are opposed to the current policy, still work on the offshore detention centres, giving support to the people there, because they try to help individuals, so they can get caught up in it that way. There are, and have been for a long time, organisations such as the Refugee Council. There's an Asylum Seekers Resource Centre, and there are other non-government organisations who help refugees within Australia. There are also a lot of people who do kind of pro bono or legal work on behalf of refugees, and there have been quite a number of cases that have gone right through to our High Court, which is the highest court, on behalf of individuals. The most recent horrifying thing was a case that was lost on behalf of a child who was born in Brisbane in Australia to someone who arrived by boat and has been found not to have rights to stay in Australia, but is being sent to an offshore detention centre. There are lots of people. The churches, for example, are very strongly against the government policy.
Thanks. Anne, I'd like to move over to you in Germany. So within Europe, Germany has received the most applications historically last year, more than 100,000. What is this? How is the situation perceived in Germany? What is the politics behind asylum seeking? Have there been problems with Islamophobia, as Kevin has mentioned? What is it like if someone does arrive in Germany seeking asylum from a conflict-ridden country? What do they go through?
Yeah, many thanks. Actually, okay, it's right that Germany received many refugees, but when it comes to per population, it's actually not so many. So I'm very glad we have Talia with us, and I just checked figures out before, and it's 4.5 million population of Lebanon, and Lebanon received 1.2 million refugees from Syria, and actually it's 80 million population in Germany, and we received from 2011 we received approximately 43,000 refugees from Syria. So actually when we compare it to population, it's actually not so many, and organizations such as pro-asylum refugee organizations demand claim for a quite higher number of refugees. So actually just to so it's actually not so many. Of course, due to geography, Germany faces a totally different situation than, for example, Australia does. So asylum seekers do not get here by boat. There are not so many getting here, arriving at the airport. Most cross borders, but you may have heard of Dublin III agreement. So the EU member country at which refugee arrives first has to deal with the asylum application process. And as you know, that Germany is surrounded, or neighboring countries of Germany are safe third countries only. It's not so easy for refugees to actually get to Germany to apply for asylum. So the situation is quite different. And as well, we face, first of all, there are organizations who claim that Germany has a responsibility to take over, which it does not yet. Numbers are still small compared with other countries receiving refugees. And due to conditions and facilities, especially reception facilities, there are many organizations and initiatives on the ground trying to organize German language courses and have social events to integrate refugees. So there are many organizations on the ground. Most important, I think, are the ones having legal advisory services.
Okay, great. Thank you. Talia, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with us. It keeps going.
Okay, great. So Anne was just telling us about, she was comparing Lebanon to Germany, and she said per capita, Lebanon actually takes a lot more refugees, and she mentioned a figure that was something like one in five, accepting Syrian refugees specifically. So the highest number, the one country that's, the highest number of asylum seekers in the last few years has been from Syria. What has it been like within Lebanon to be receiving all these refugees? How has it affected the internal politics of the country?
Well, first, let me just tell you that, in a way, ironically, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So Lebanon, ironically, has been constituted by refugees because from at least from the last 1,000 years, Maronites were originally refugees. Armenians were originally refugees. So the Lebanese population is originally made up of refugees. But now what is happening recently with the Syrian and with the Iraqi crisis is weighing really, really heavily. Because let us not forget that at least when it comes to the Syrian crisis, it has also a heavy political impact. Let us not forget that Hezbollah is fighting in Syria. So let us not forget, for instance...
And Hezbollah is based in, sorry, just for our viewers.
Hezbollah is a Lebanese political party with...
Sorry, Thalia, I think we lost you. Talia? While we get Talia back, Suzanne, I think I'll come to you. So Suzanne is based in Strasbourg in France, and she helped arrange this episode. Suzanne, I wanted to talk to you a bit about Fortress Europe, and also, Kevin mentioned this. A lot of asylum seekers arrive by boat, and specifically in Europe, 4,000 people lost their lives in the Mediterranean Sea, trying to get to Europe. How is the conversation perceived in France, and who's working to counter Fortress Europe?
So the situation is quite complex. Many asylum seekers have first to be able to cross the Mediterranean Sea alive, and then those who manage this arrive on the small Italian island of Lampedusa. But Italy can't, even if according to Dublin rules, Italy should be the country managing those refugees. Italy has no means to face the problem. So many of those asylum seekers or migrants then cross Italy and arrive in France, for instance, through land borders. Some of them don't intend to stay in France. So France is partly a country of transit, and many flock to Calais, which is at the entrance of the channel, because they want to go to England. So the media has recently focused about scuffles between migrants, mostly from Eritrea or Sudan or Ethiopia. At the same moment, then there was a big police operation under cover of fighting the traffickers and people smugglers. But you could not hear or read anything in the mainstream media about this police operation, which was called under the beautiful name of I can't find them. And But that's another story. Our preferred scapegoat in France are the Roma people.
Mm-hmm.
So the asylum seekers are not on the foreground of xenophobia. But anyway, in France we have 3 categories of actors trying to defend the rights and dignity of asylum seekers. You have the big charities and non-profits who are working with the governments and the authorities. That is, for instance, some of them are specialized in legal helping of the migrants, as CIMAD, which is very well known in France. They have lawyers, and that's their specialty, to help with applications, with asylum applications. And you have big charities who are not focused on migrants and asylum seekers, but those are part of their of the people they help. So these organizations work with the government because they have a mission of public service, but at the same time they have they have an official role, so they have to abide by laws, of course. They have their own qualms because they have to be realistic. They act in a global landscape of problems and qualms about foreigners. And they also have qualms with their own volunteers, because it's all the issues about foreigners and asylum seekers and strangers are very complicated ones. So you have also some big advocacy groups. The biggest is sorry. Some are official. Like Amnesty International.
Right.
And then you have smaller groups, which are not institutional. So they are freer. They have more freedom of movement, and they can act about asylum seekers or also economic migrants. Or the boundaries are not so clear between the different categories.
We have a question from a GVer actually, who's watching us right now. He wants to know. He wants us to comment on the Dublin Agreement, which was mentioned here, Dublin II Agreement. And he says specifically there are 11,000 Syrian refugees in his country, Bulgaria, and this is affecting the situation there. And we've got Claire has said the code name of European week-long migrant screening operation was Mos Moram.
Yeah.
So would someone like to talk about the Dublin Agreement? Anne?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. It's true that some conditions in some countries, conditions are too harsh to send actually refugees back to this country. We had the case with Greece before, and so Greece is within these Dublin Agreement. Refugees at the moment are not sent back to Greece. And we should have the same, for example, for Bulgaria and so on. I fully agree, because as soon as refugees make it from Bulgaria to Germany, they should, by law, they should be sent back. But officially, of course, we should reach now a policy agreement to not send them back, but have the application process in Germany afterwards. This is a common claim and demand of refugee organizations, and this is a decision on policy level, and it should reach. I mean, I fully agree. I think this was what was meant to comment on it. Yeah.
Right. So that brings me to the question. So, you know, when these refugees do leave these countries, they usually spend all the money that they have to make it to the country that they're going to. They bring all their hope, they risk their lives, their health, their finances, everything to come to this country. And if they get turned back, some countries keep them in detention centers, some don't, and some detention centers are better than others. What are some of the things that you've seen that are working? And we have another question from Ruslan from Bulgaria again, and he's kind of asking the same thing. If you have any advice from civil society, specifically in Germany or France, that what activists in Bulgaria can do to help refugees and asylum seekers make their journey or their path to some sort of survival easier. Anne, would you like to, or Suzanne?
Sorry, the question again. The question is how they can make their refuge to reach Germany, or
no, just make it easier for them, like
Okay.
kind of resources, because oftentimes, you know, they spend all their money to do the trip. Their health and there are various factors involved. They kind of leave everything behind, and if they get kind of stuck in between, not going anywhere, then you know, there's certain organizations, as Kevin mentioned, the Salvation Army in Australia really helps such situations in cases where people are in some sort of detention center, whether that's a formal prison-like thing or if it's a community-driven thing. So I guess you know, any tips for activists working in countries where such a system does not exist, an informal system of helping refugees and asylum seekers?
For Germany, what works very well are so-called round tables. So neighbors of such reception facilities or accommodations gather together as neighbors, as citizens, and it's best to ask refugees themselves, because quite often we are talking about refugees in a very passive voice, and when it comes to victimization, it would be quite helpful to ask them, what do you need? And actually, in some accommodation facilities, some initiatives have some sheets of paper with some questions. Do you need shoes? Do you need, I don't know, some things for the households? What do you need? And just let them fill out. And then try to organize this by gathering on round tables and trying to organize things. But best option, first ask what is needed, because some things are not needed. And try to organize it. And the second thing is try together. Try to come together, to cook, to talk, to have, because refugees have their own skills to bring in. It's not, I mean, it's a very good idea to go there and teach the native language, for example, teaching German in Germany, but also, I mean, you can also ask them to teach them their language. Why not learning, I mean, exchanging Farsi or Pashto for German, and try to integrate them. Asylum seekers in Germany are not allowed to take part in German courses or integration courses, but you can organize it. I mean, just organize it. Asylum seeking process can be a very long process, taking years, and it's a very good idea to start from the beginning to integrate them and include them into your society, which can be best the neighborhood of an accommodation facility. And we had also, last point, sorry, mentoring programs, so neighbors being mentors for refugees, to be asked everyday questions like, how do I behave on German streets, or I don't know. So just gathering and coming together and ask what they need.
Great, thank you. Talia, are you with us?
Yes, for the time being.
Oh, great. Okay. So do you have any comments you want to add? Oh, I think we just lost her. Whoops. Okay, Kevin, if you have any last comments you'd like to add?
Yes, there are plenty of supports for refugees who have, you know, a visa to stay in Australia. the main problem is for asylum seekers who have not got that status, who haven't been accepted as refugees, number one, and number two, have a visa to settle in Australia. But there are lots of, if they are in Australia, there are lots of support systems to assist them. But the government is trying to make asylum seekers unwelcome, so they're not a major part of that. But there are certainly all the kinds of things that exist in Germany. And Australia has, on the positive side, has a very long history of migration since the Second World War, and of helping and welcoming migrants into Australia, and refugees as well. And the main problem in Australia is the way that people arriving by boat who are not coming through the so-called official channels are treated, and that's going to take a long time to change. We need regional solutions so that countries in the area become part of the solutions for these kind of things, as well as changing public opinion. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you see anyone producing really snazzy graphics and videos like the No Way into Australia campaign, doing the exact opposite? Are they?
Oh, yes, yeah. There are, yep, and there are a lot of people working on the issue, producing things, and
Great.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, and the local media have done a lot. There've been many documentaries made by people like SBS, our special broadcasting service, showing what the life of asylum seekers is, and have followed people from their country all the way to Australia by boat. That they're examples of what people have done.
Great. We have Talia back. So Talia, any last words? Or maybe not. We'll go over to Suzanne and try Talia again.
Yes.
Any last words, Suzanne?
Yes. Depends on the community. Some communities have very strong support, so integration or life during the application is made easier. But what is easing as well is people should contact charities or non-profits, because they can do voluntary works, because of course they don't have any right to work before they get the permit, but they can start integrating with voluntary work with charities, and they can work as interpreters, and that's very needed. So, and some communities may have it easier because they have a strong background of their own diaspora.
Thank you.
And there are the individual initiatives which have to be mentioned as well. So, because my last words would be, there's a priest who was taken to court because he accommodated asylum seekers in his church, and he won at the first court, acquitted him, but now the prosecutor has filed an appeal against him. So there's always something to do and to try.
Yeah, individual heroes trying to help people who really need help. Thank you, Talia. If you are back, we can get a few words from you. I think you are muted right now. Anne, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that for when it comes to Global Voices, I'm very much looking forward to have this issue now on our agenda and give the voice to also to the refugees. So I'm very much looking forward to all the initiatives coming up now on level of Global Voices as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne. And thank you, Kevin, Suzanne. And I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties, Talia. We'll be coming again next week on GB Face. We're going to be talking about something interesting. We're going to be sitting down with GB contributors and activists from Tunisia and Ukraine and talking about elections post-revolution. So do tune in next week, and we'll be tweeting out information about time and date. Thank you for joining us, and Kevin, Suzanne, and Talia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks.